All right, gang, we gave a brief overview of assignment number 5, talked about what we'll be learning with respect to the newsreader, went into a couple files here, particularly the Android manifest.xml file. It showed what that was, what needed to be done there. There's all the code for the Android manifest.xml file. Also talked about the strings.xml as well too in the values subdirectory. And you could see what strings are involved here. You could take out any spaces here. The one thing though, you want to make sure that always make sure that your XML is what we call in normal form, or what better stated, well-formed. That is a well-formed document, and that means that all the elements, like for instance, here's an element string. Well, string, make sure it is, first of all, it is a two-sided tag. You could see string here, opening tag, and then the closing tag. Well, one thing that you want to make sure is that 1, all the elements are in lowercase. 2, all the property values, here's a property name, and the value is app name. Make sure all your property values have double quotation marks around them. Okay, let's go on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into a layout, an activity, and then I'm going to go into the associated class that's associated with that. So let's do the items activity. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to make this a little bit larger. I have some comments in here too that may help. First of all, make sure that you're using a linear layout, gang, here. And again, this layout, when you right click on Java here, you're going to create an items activity. With that items activity is going to give you an associated activity underscore items.xml file. Excuse me. Make sure that you're using a linear layout with a vertical orientation. Okay, so there is the code here, and sometimes I don't think highlighting it helps you. I think it's a hindrance, but I do that anyway just to show where all the code is, and then I take the highlighting off. There's going to be 2 widgets. One is a text view widget, and another is a list view widget. Now this list view, as I mentioned here in the comments, I have here that the newsreader reads an RSS feed and parses the data into Java objects. Well, we're going to create an adapter and display the data in the list view. So here is the code for that. Here's the color. Now, gang, let me show you the design view of this and what that looks like. So again, I'm in the activity items.xml file. Here's the text view. By the way, as I mentioned in class, this is the fastest way to do it, not by dragging and dropping, but just make sure that you're using a linear layout. You have your layout width and height that's going to match parent, and make sure that the orientation is vertical. Here's the text view, and here is the associated list view. Let me show the design. And you could see that this is where the user goes to the very first screen. Now again, if you want to have a splash transition screen, I encourage you to do that just to play around. Make sure you use a timer with it. I would limit that timer to like 1 second, because 1 second is actually pretty quick. But the first-time user would still be able to understand it, and a repeat user wouldn't have to wait too long. So 1 second would be pretty decent. Again, here is the design view. Here's the text view. Okay, let's go into the, so that's the activity underscore items.xml file. Let's go into the actual Java for this. Now I'm going to show this in parts. You don't really need the import statement, because once you start coding this, it'll ask you or should say tell you that you need to make some import statements. I'm going to show this a little bit larger here, and that should be sufficient, I believe. Make it just a little bit larger. There it is right there. Notice the package. Okay, yours is going to be different. It's going to be com.example.your FSU ID or whatever name you're using, .newsreader, because it's going to be our newsreader application. Here are the import statements that you need. Okay. Notice the async, as I mentioned. The async class that we're going to need. So you're going to have to import that. Also going to import logs and views, the adapter view, list view, simple adapter, and text view. Also an array list and a hash map. We're going to be using that. I'll talk more about those in class. Matter of fact, might even do a skill set with a array list and a hash map, or individually do them. Okay, that's your import statements. You could pause it there. Now here's the actual class right here, and what it's going to implement is an interface for the listener. And again, what is a listener? Well, it's something that listens for user activity. So the public class is going to be the same name. Always remember, it's always the same name as the file. It's items, plural, items activity. It's going to extend the app compat activity. In other words, the application compatible activity. It's extend from there. Notice that we have the extend, that items activity is actually a subtype, right? The child class, and which extends from the parent class, which is app compat activity. And it's also going to implement an adapter view dot on item click listener, and that's what's it's going to be used to listen for user interaction. Okay, we're going to declare an RSS feed and file IO variables right here, lines 24 and 25. Private RSS feed, just name it feed. Private file IO, name it IO. Two other private variables for text view and a list view. And you can see the names there, the variable names. Title text view, items list view. And then override. Notice here what this override option is doing is explicitly indicating an override that this method here on create is going to be explicitly overridden, and that's why we, in case there's some other methods with the same name that the compiler may miss because it assumes that they're not going to be overridden, and those occur with the Java built-in methods. So just to make sure that you're not naming a method that could interfere with the compiler, or I should say the Java environment methods, then you're going to use the explicit override option. On create, notice we learned in class what that super is. It's calling for the super.onCreate, in other words, the parent object for this. Super.onCreate, that's what that is, the parent, and this is the subclass. Protected void on create, call the super.onCreate, set content view, layout, and that is layout is the activity underscore items. Okay, this is for showing the app icon or the launcher icon in the emulator. We talked about this before. Here is creating a file object or file IO object using the get application context method. Here is our variables we declared above: title text view, items list view. Here is the items list view set on item click listener, meaning for this particular object. And then what we're going to do is we're going to download a feed, download an RSS feed, and execute that. So this new item is actually, every time you see a new keyword, it's instantiating an object. Okay, so that's that, and that's the end of our overridden onCreate method right here. Let's go to the next one. There are several other methods here. One is we're going to use the this actually is a method. The next two aren't methods; they're inner classes, and that is the download feed and the read feed are both inner classes. Let's do that before we get into the update display method. But these are inner classes, as you can tell by the class keyword. And because it is within a class, the actual outer class is this, right? Items activity. So it's all wrapped inside of that. These inner classes are wrapped inside of that outer class. That's why it's called an inner class. And what this is going to do is it uses the background thread to download the XML for the RSS feed. Notice we're using the async task class right here. We're using this. So class download feed extends async task with 3 parameters: void, void, and void. There are going to be void parameters. So here is the inner class, and then inside of, actually all of this is the inner class right here. Okay, as you can see when I hold this cursor next to the curly bracket. So this entire, from line 51 to line 65, is the inner class. We have a overridden do in background method, and that is to download the file. And then here we're going to display a message in the what we call the log cat view. And then when it's downloading, you can actually go to the log cat view and see that it is successfully downloading. And we'll talk about this in class, or if you want, you can do a quick internet search and see how you could see that log cat view, the file being downloaded in there. Okay, or at least the indication that it's being downloaded. That's the inner class. Here's another inner class. So that was the download feed inner class, which uses the async superclass or parent class, and that's why we had to pull in this import statement on line 5. Okay, the next inner class is, and let me make sure, background thread to read XML for RSS feed and parse into the RSS feed object, which contains multiple RSS item objects. So here is the RSS feed. Again, this extends from the async task class. So that's the RSS feed inner class. It's going to do the same thing in background. So we're doing this thread in a background so that the user interface is not slowed down or interrupted by any input-output processing. So this is reading from the file. This is downloading the file in the download feed, but this is reading the file. And here is the do in background method. Here's another method right here, and that is the same as above, the log, to get the log cat view. Now this is on post execute. It's going to put it into the log view of what is actually occurring, and update the display for the activity, and that is items activity this.update display. So this is your second inner class read feed. All right, let's do another one. So here is updating the user interface. Here's our update display method, and you can see that it is used here on line 82. So here's the actual method. It's a UDM, a user-defined method, and it updates the user interface. Okay, so if the feed is not equals null, then it's going to say unable to get RSS feed, which you may encounter when part of the requirement for this assignment is to get your own RSS feed. So if the RSS feed isn't working, you will see this error, unable to get RSS feed. And then you want to set the title. If not, you want to set the, so if it's null, you'll tell the user that they can't get the feed. Otherwise, you want to set the title for the feed and get the items for the feed using the get all items. And again, we have a variable here called feed. That feed variable comes from the top over here that we declared. And that is from the RSS feed class, line 24. Same with the file IO. The IO variable is actually an object variable of the file IO class. Feed is an object variable of the RSS feed class. Okay, so here we are. Update display. If it is null, tell the user that they can't get unable to get the RSS feed. If not, change the text view to the title. We're going to use an array list to get the items for the feed, and we're going to list them in a map. Now, there's a couple things here. We're going to create a list with a map, and that array list is the reason why you want to use an array list over an array is that it works more efficiently with objects, and that what we could use are methods like add method or remove all. And rather than using an array, it's just more efficient to do so using an array list. And the array list is going to include the type of hash map. Now, the one thing with array lists, they have to use some type of an object. And here we're going to have a hash map, and it's going to take 2 strings. And those 2 strings are the date and the title. Okay, so this array list right here is going to be using a hash map, and it's going to be passing accepting 2 arguments. Here are the parameters for it, string type, and then we're going to just indicate that for each one of those, we're going to put the date and the title for each one of these items. And notice here it says they're using an add method for this particular array, or I should say array list. And notice the object variable for the array list is just called data. So all this code from 101 to 107 belongs together, getting the date and title. Next, we want to create a source from and to variables. So here in source, list view items, and by the way, that comes from this particular XML file right here, which we'll get into later, list view items. List view item. I always get these 3 confused. This is activity item singular, and this is the list view item singular. So we're going to get that, and then from there we're going to the source is the list view item, and that's going to be our from for the date and title values, and then our to is going to be the pub date text view and title text view, which you'll see that we'll actually have widgets that we're going to use to display those. All right, now we're going to have an adapter, and that adapter, let me put this in here for you. I got some notes for you here. An adapter really is just a bridge between a user interface component and a data source, and it helps fill the data in a user interface component. So the one we're going to be using is a simple adapter class. So simple adapter, the capital S, A, simple adapter is used for customizing a list or grid items, and here we're using a list. And it's an easy adapter to use to map static data views that are defined in an XML file. And since an RSS feed is an XML file, we're going to use this particular type of adapter. So here we're going to create and set the adapter. using the simple adapter class, we're going to just call it object variable adapter. Okay, it's going to have 4 different parameters. 5. This indicating the object that was instantiated, the data that was defined above, right here, right? This array list, the resource, which was defined here. In other words, what list item, which is going to be an int, by the way, which list item in the array is listed. By the way, it's 0 base, so 0 would be the first array item, 1 would be the second, etc., etc. The from, right here, the from, and which is a string array, and the to, which is an int array. And that means that we're going to get these strings for date and title, and then we're going to put them in each one of the widgets. For instance, a publication text view widget or the title text view widget. So we're creating and setting the adapter right here. Okay, and then we're using the set adapter method. Here we're creating it. Here we're using the set adapter method with the argument being the adapter variable that's right here. And then any issues, we put that in a logcat view. So it would say the newsreader and feed display. Here are the parameters, by the way, for the on item click method. So for instance, the first one provides the adapter view object for the list of items, and that's this. So you can see it is a adapter view with a list with the angle brackets. And then number 2 is going to be a view object, as you can see in the second parameter. Number 3 is a position of selected items. It's an array, so 0 would be first position, 1 would be second position, etc. And the ID of that selected item. So here are all your parameters right here. There's a first one, second one, third one, and last one. Now finally, what we're going to do is get the item at the specified position. In other words, where is it located? And we're going to put that into a variable called item. Now, what is an intent? Intent is really an intention to perform an action. You can have an explicit intent or an implicit intent, as I indicated here in the notes. And it's really an explicit intent is used to pass data between activities, and an implicit intent is determined which is the best app to perform an action. For instance, if you want to view a URL, you're going to use the device's browser. If you want to make a call, you would use a function on the phone. So an implicit intent will allow you to view a URL, make a phone call, accept a phone call, etc. So to create an intent to pass all the data to the item activity, first thing we're going to do is create an intent. The capital I is for the intent class, and the lowercase I is the variable, just intent. New intent, this particular object. Remember, this is always used with an instantiated object, and the class is item activity. Okay, now we're going to use the put extra method to put the date, title, description, and link, and we're going to pass that to the activity. Whatever activity you want that passed to, we're going to say this start.activity, and it's going to be the name of that activity in this variable intent. Where does that come from? Right here. What is it? Well, it's a new intent. And since this is the items activity and associated with the activity items.xml, what we're going to do is pass it to the item activity right here when we created our intent on line 143. And what that'll do, we'll take up next, is pass it to this XML file, which in design view looks like this. So the initial one items activity or activity items that has the listing of items. We click on that, and the next thing we do is it passes whatever values for that particular item to the to the activity item, and that's where we see more detail of that particular item that's coming from the RSS feed. All right, gang, we'll stop here and tick off with our next video.